MaryBeth Hyland is the founder and chief visionary of Spark Vision. She helps companies create strong values and culture, and she does that through helping people connect with purpose. It's a major turn for a person who essentially gave spirituality the stiff arm. Now she's helping people take it one step at a time, living a more fulfilled life at a pace they're comfortable with, starting really with mindfulness and intention. Her new book, Permission to Be Human, really gets into how to change your life and change your culture at work. She's had a lot to overcome. She was a victim of child abuse her entire childhood and was diagnosed with a work addiction in her 20s. So she does give people a lot of grace and helps walk them through the process of injecting truth, injecting purpose into their work. She builds bridges for people to help them get to the life they really want. So this is MaryBeth Hyland, The Bridge. You ready to get started?
I'm so ready.
Okay, so I've got a little series of questions here.
Okay.
It's a game I like to play.
Okay.
It's called Best Time, Worst Time.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. When was the best time in your life?
Right now.
No way!
Yeah.
Tell me why.
This past 2 or so years has been such an incredible experience of understanding like what you really want and what you don't, and all the things that you've been making excuses about that you thought like one day I'll do something about that. And so this is the best time because I've never felt more in alignment with my values, my purpose, the connection to everything that I'm here to do. And our big long-term vision in our lives is to open a retreat center in Idaho. And we just bought our first tiny home for the property just a few weeks ago. So all those things that have always been a dream, or, you know, maybe one day I'll stop doing that kind of work and I'll start doing this kind of work, that it's just, that's what it is now.
Yeah, you're actually doing the thing. You're making the choices to live the life you want to live. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
When was the worst time in your life?
Easily, I would say it was like a period of time. So probably like middle school, elementary, middle school. And that was because my father was abusive. And it was a kind of circumstances where he said that if we told anybody about the abuse, that my parents would get divorced and it would be our fault. And so it was a very intense manipulation. And when you're a kid, you just believe what you're told.
And you had no idea to know that what he was doing was wrong, and you actually could tell someone.
Exactly. And when I gave little bits of like, he's really mean, I'm really scared of him, it was really shut down, and it wasn't something that was investigated or looked at. And so it was an experience where I thought something was wrong with me versus something was wrong with that situation.
Wow. Yeah, and only adulthood gets you to that place, right? Realizing that it was him. You were never the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably have had to do a lot of work with that.
Yeah, and actually, you know, that question of this is the best time of my life, I know that if it wasn't for that worst time, those experiences, I wouldn't be able to do the work I'm doing today.
Right.
I had to have the father that I had in order to be the woman that I am today, and to have those experiences of extreme trauma and then self-hatred for a large portion of my life, to ultimately realize that you don't actually have to live that way, and you can get help, and there is support, and there are tools and techniques and lots of different modalities of how you can heal.
Right.
And so the work that I get to do now is based on my personal journey of healing. So it's not like, oh, I memorized this philosophy or I understand this framework. Yes, those things are great tools to have, but it comes from the wisdom of my experience, and all that came out of a really deep and intense healing journey.
Wow. When was there a turning point in your life, and do you remember that?
Yes. So when I was, I remember how old I was. I must have been like 26, 27. I was running a young professionals group at my local chapter of United Way, and it was an extremely successful program. It was actually deemed the global best practice model for all of the United Way system. And every year I put on a young professionals conference, and there was about 500 people at the conference that year, and I always gave the closing keynote as the director of the program. And every year in the program, I had talked about my foster daughter, and I really used her as sort of like this story to compel people to give and to be more generous, because it was all about philanthropy in the work that I was doing. And what I never did was talk about my own story.
Which was powerful.
Yeah. And I realized, like, who am I to put this child out there and not share what was going on in my own life? And that year, my father had died a few months prior. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to keep this a secret. And so on stage, my last year, I knew I was going to leave. Like, nobody knew but me and my husband at that time. And I decided this year in the closing keynote, I am going to share my story.
Wow.
And so in front of 500 people, which about 100, 200 I knew personally, on stage, I said, you've heard me talk about my foster daughter, but you've never really heard me talk about why.
Yeah.
And most people assume that I do this because I'm just a good person, not because I actually know what it feels like. We have very different life circumstances, but the same emotional experience of having abuse that was not being, no one was doing anything about it in the home. And so when I shared that on stage, it was definitely an outer body experience.
Did you cry? Because
a little bit.
I'm just amazed you could keep it in, like sharing that for the first time publicly.
Well, I had been in therapy for a while. So that is one big thing. A lot of people ask me like, oh, I want to be brave and vulnerable like that. And it's like, I think that there is a certain amount of healing that needs to be done before you just put it out there to everybody, in a sense of like, you don't know how people are going to respond. You need to create psychological safety for yourself first. And so I had been in years of therapy at that point, and I had talked to my therapist about it. You know, it was a plan. And interestingly, my boss at the time, I told her that I was going to do this, and I was going to share this story of why I do this work. And she said, I really don't want you to do that.
Oh, wow.
And she said, I'm afraid that you are going to cry. I'm afraid you're not going to be able to keep it together, and it's going to be really distracting for everybody else.
Oh.
And so that created one of these like, oh yeah? Yes, I am. Well, watch me, right? And so that really fueled me to be like, well, who are you to tell me what story I'm allowed to tell? Ultimately, she was very proud of me, and it was the most transformative experience because I walked in as one person and I left as someone else. There were people in the audience who had known me my whole life and had no idea. Wow. And they said, oh my God, now I understand you so much better. And there were people that I had never met before who said, I really want to share my story with you because this is the first time I ever felt like I could.
Wow.
And to this day, in Baltimore, where I live, I will be places and people will say, I was there when you told your story. And I don't even know them.
Wow.
And so it was easily this extremely transformative experience, but also this purpose igniting experience of the thing I had really held as my deepest, darkest secret that I never wanted anybody to find out about was my biggest power.
God, I love that. When was your greatest moment of clarity?
I'll say that was a part of it.
Yeah.
That was a part of it for sure. But then everything that came afterwards, because it was like the first domino to start falling of like, whoa, I can actually tell the truth about my life and my experience, and people will actually honor that to be the truth, because at home I was told that I was too sensitive, a crybaby, needed so much attention. The world didn't revolve around me. And so I carried a pretty heavy load of thinking that, okay, something's wrong with me if I want to talk about these kinds of things.
Right. When the whole time you were a victim and no one was acknowledging, no one knew and no one acknowledged that you were a victim.
Yeah. It was really difficult. But I'll say that from that moment, the dominoes were just like, every time somebody came up and said, thank you so much for doing that, it was like, more purpose, more purpose, more purpose. And it just kept happening over and over again. And it's an experience now where I'm so grateful that now that I have this book, Permission to Be Human, it's people all over the world are saying this to me that I've never even spoken to.
Right.
And so it's created this new level of recognition that you can touch people's lives by just sharing your stories. You obviously know that, right? You wouldn't be doing this work if you didn't.
Right. What's something about your nature you feel like you've overcome or you continue to overcome?
My work addiction. So I didn't know that was an actually clinical diagnosis. And it was when I started to go to therapy that my therapist said, you have a work addiction. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what makes me successful.
That's right. I like doing this.
You need to do this, right? And it was to a point where I was working probably 18 hours in a day. And it was the kind of experience where I was falling asleep on the couch with a laptop on me and then waking up 2, 3 in the morning, working some more, falling back asleep on the couch and then going into work like immediately after. And it was 7 days a week.
Why? Oh my gosh, why? What drove you?
Well, my father always told me I wasn't good enough. And so what I've learned in my own healing journey is the messages that you receive up until the age of 7 are really the ingrained programming of how you operate the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly trying to prove that I was good enough. And during that time that I had this work addiction, I was receiving global accolades. I was Innovator of the Year. I was getting every award you can imagine in Baltimore. And so it was like, good job.
Yeah.
Keep going. You're doing so great.
You're addicted and it's working for you.
Exactly. And so from the outside, it really looked like I had this amazing situation.
Yeah.
But on the inside, I was just like hating myself. I just was never good enough. And it wasn't until one morning when my husband rolled over in bed and he just said, it's so good to see you. And I was like, what do you mean? You see me all the time. He's like, you're either at work or already started working or asleep on the couch when I wake up in the morning. So I haven't actually seen you when I wake up in bed in a while.
Gosh.
And he was being very kind. Like he was saying like he was really happy to see me, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I said I have a problem and I need to get help. And so that's what created this really important opportunity to heal what was deeper.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. What do you find yourself saying a lot lately? The things that come out of your mouth all the time?
I mean, every day, give yourself permission to be human. Like, all the time.
Where does that come from?
It comes from my book, but really that title came from my clients. So I have a long-term client that I've been working with, their company, and when the pandemic hit, obviously, like everyone else, we had to shift the work dramatically. And the CEO came into one of our meetings that we were just, I run a group within the company with helping them to live out their values and their culture. And he said, this work is giving us permission to be human. And I didn't know that was possible here. And I actually missed it the first time that he said it. And I just was like, it just felt so nice that he wanted to tell the whole team what an impact they were making. Then he got off the line and one of the women in the group said, did you hear what he just said? He said, we're giving this team permission to be human. And this is a construction company. So this is not a normal, the activities and things that we were doing were really outside of the norm.
Right.
They're already a great organization, but it was just taking it to the next level of humanity within the workplace.
Oh, I love that. What do you think your purpose is right now?
Well, my purpose has been clear for a while, and I say this very regularly, is to create spaces where voices are heard, stories are released, and purpose is ignited. And I used to say where stories are validated. And I realized that was actually from my trauma of needing other people to say, it's real, it's real, it's real. And then after going on a deeper healing journey, you don't need other people to tell you it's real. Like, you need to validate yourself. And if you're looking for other people to do that for you, it's just, you're never actually going to get to the next place.
Right.
So releasing it is so powerful.
And when do you think you realized that was your purpose?
It started in that turning point moment of like, whoa, if I can share my story, then it gives other people permission to share their stories.
Yeah.
And then I started to do different retreats and workshops and trainings where people were saying things like, I've held on to this my entire life. I've never told anybody this before.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just a pretty standard thing that happened in those spaces. And I thought, why is this so rare?
Yeah.
Right? Why is this so rare? And what I heard over and over again was the container, right? The container that's created of psychological safety, feeling like they have permission to be human, feeling like it's a place where they can really be authentic to who they are.
Yeah.
And that part of why they're there is to actually release and do that. I actually just had an experience. It was a 1-hour thing online with a women's group, and a woman who was probably 70 years old said at the end of it when she shared, I have spent my entire life thinking I couldn't share this part of myself because it would make other people think that I wasn't a powerful leader. And I just said it for the first time out loud, and I already feel so much lighter. And now I have somebody who I can go back and talk to about this. And I have no idea what she shared in her breakout experience, but it was just hearing that was like, yes.
Yeah.
So you can do that in such little time.
Right. Well, why do you think that container exists? You know, is that a society thing? Is that a thing that we impose on ourselves? What do you think it is?
What do you mean? Tell me.
Like the container, you were saying, like we put ourselves in this container. Like we have this framework that we're all supposed to live within. What do you think that is? What do you think it's from?
Yeah. Well, I think that so when I was talking about container before, I wanted to talk about it in more of a, this is a positive thing.
Oh, all right.
Whereas the container of psychological safety, like it's safe inside this space, right?
See.
Whereas the container I think you're talking about is more of the societal norm container.
Right.
More of the, if you pass these boundaries, then you're not accepted here.
Right.
Right? That if you don't check these boxes and follow this path, then it's probably dangerous for you to go down that route. And I think that exists because, I mean, just put it out there, like, I think that we're in a society that's really wants us to pay our bills, work really hard, and then hope that we make it to death safely.
Yeah. Or make it there. You'll make it there at some point.
Yeah.
Right? We'll all make
it's,
it there.
It's like, how can we just be the lowest risk, dim us as much as possible so that we follow the program that's being instilled in us from the time that we go to school of what it means to be successful. And then, of course, what our parents and the people that raise us are such huge influencers around how you receive love.
Yeah.
And it only feels safe to receive love in certain ways.
Yeah. When do you feel like you started changing your story? Because I think to have the healing that you've had to have, at some point you had to say, this can't be mine anymore.
Yeah. It was therapy. I mean, therapy was the beginning.
Like, how old were you? What was going on at that time?
I was probably 24, so I'm 37 now. So it's been a journey. Thinking about how long that process has been, and having a therapist like tell me, like, what happened to me was real, like I'm not making it up, and then help me to start pull apart the stories I was telling myself that weren't actually serving me or anybody else that I was regurgitating the stories to.
Yeah.
And then reframing those stories. It was not that my therapist gave it to me, but she got me to a place where I realized if it weren't for all of this trauma, I'd never be doing the work that I'm doing today. And the reason people feel that safety and connection is because they know that it's authentic and real, that I wouldn't have gotten to if I hadn't had that pain.
Right. So let's talk about the work that you're doing. How do you describe it? You meet somebody in the street, what do you say you do?
I say that I work with individuals and organizations who are looking to uncover their values and then live in alignment with those values to have a sense of purpose and aliveness and all of those things that we get when we're really energized because our values are really lived and not just nice ideas.
Right. And where did that come from for you?
Well, when I started the series of doing workshops and retreats, when I started my company almost 7 years ago now, it was an experience where I was like, well, I want other people to have what I had on stage that day.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do that for other people because most people don't want to be on stage, right? Like that would be a horrible thing for them. And so I started to do focus groups. And I brought in diverse groups of people that I knew and loved and trusted. And I just started telling them what kinds of spaces and experiences I wanted to create in our community. And then a woman in the group said, you know, what you're really talking about is values. And you know, our values come from our life experiences.
Yeah. And were you like, light bulb?
Oh my gosh, it was like a lightning bolt, you know, it just was like zing, and it stuck, you know, in the same way that Permission to Be Human stuck.
Yeah.
It was just like, it's true.
That's it.
And so it's not actually that I'm super passionate about values as much as I'm passionate about the emotional intelligence that values unlock, like instantly for people.
Yeah.
You could talk about really deep things or start in the shallow end, but when you do it through the lens of values, people understand themselves in a way that maybe could feel a little too complex if we're just talking about like emotional intelligence overall or healing overall or purpose overall. It's like, well, let's understand what makes you come alive.
Yeah.
And let's understand what doesn't.
Well, what are some of those values that you find you end up working in a lot?
Well, a lot of authenticity right now. There are a lot of people who have been awakened during this time in realizing I have been this person for everybody else my whole life, and that's not actually who I am.
Right. You know what's interesting about that is, as being a news anchor, we have consultants that come in all the time for lots of different things. And one of the consultant presentations we've had just in the last, I think it probably started in 2019, even before COVID, they started to really begin testing millennials specifically, because now millennials are in this main demographic that advertisers love. Advertisers love 25-54, age 25 to 54. And already in 2019, they were finding that millennials kept saying the same thing over and over again. Authenticity. They wanted authenticity. I say they, I, and you.
I was going to say us. You mean us.
We are millennials. And it was so, I can't tell you like what a redeeming time it was for me to sit in a presentation and finally begin hearing the results in the research begin to bear out. It showed exactly what I'd been feeling. And at that moment, I felt like, oh my gosh, what I want as a person is finally being listened to, because now it's coming out in research that companies are seeing all over the place, especially media companies. They're saying, we want authenticity from the stories we hear, authenticity from the people who give us those stories. And so then you take COVID, you take lockdown, the great, as awful as this was for our entire world, there were some really beautiful parts of COVID and lockdown. It forced so many of us to go in and find our authentic selves and ask ourselves the questions of what do we really want? And now even more so, fast forward, and I saw research again a couple of months ago that was like, millennials, they want this, they want that. And I'm sitting there in the back of the presentation room going, God, why did we spend money on this? Just come talk to me.
Talk about authenticity.
Tell me, come ask me what you want to know. I am in your target demographic.
Right.
Authenticity is everything. We want to see the fault lines. We don't want perfection, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that as a millennial, don't you?
Totally. And what has been really rewarding and simultaneously like, it's hard when people come to you and they don't actually know who their authentic self is. So it's not like, oh, I have this cowgirl inside of me that I need to let out, which is my story. But they're like, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know because I've been following somebody else's program my entire life. And so what is step one? Like, what is the first step for understing who I am?
What is it? What is step one?
So that's where the values come in.
Yeah, okay.
That's where the values come in. So instead of, there's also this big trend now of like knowing your why, knowing your purpose. Like, of course that is important. And it also puts a huge amount of pressure on people who don't know.
Totally.
And then they start feeling like something's wrong with them. Like, why don't I know my purpose? What's broken in me, right? And so the way that I talk about it is, once you know your values, if you can understand even your top core value, just one, then if you're activating it, you're living your purpose.
Yeah.
Because you're doing it.
Yeah, you're doing something that you love, something that seems important to you.
Yes.
What's another value you find that comes up a lot?
Right now, connection also is huge. And I think for similar reasons, people are feeling disconnected. Yeah. Disconnected from themselves, disconnected from other people, disconnected from their work. And so they're trying to figure out, what does connection look like now? And how can I do it in a way where it is activating my values versus like required connection, right?
Yeah.
We know about these sort of, sometimes it's like, well, you gotta go to the such and such's thing, or I have to go to Aunt Sally's, whatever it is, and so it creates this, like, it's a required or a mandatory connection versus this is a real deep connection that's igniting something inside of me when I have it.
Don't you think that begins with choice? Someone has to make the choice to decide that that's something they want, and then
and then they have to make the effort associated with that.
And they have to be able to set boundaries.
Yeah.
And boundaries are so key to doing any of this work. Yeah. So I teach mindfulness and meditation alongside this work, actually created values-based mindfulness, because you really can't be doing this work if you're not mindful. Yeah. And so one of the things I always say is, like, it doesn't matter how much you meditate or breathe or do yoga or any of those things if you keep making the same choices.
Oof.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Those things will help you to get clear on what choices to make, right? Those things give you the space to say, oh, I'm actually not going to go to the annual gathering with people who make me feel terrible about myself.
That's an interesting choice.
Right?
I think that's a good choice. I think it's a good one.
But feeling like they have permission to say, no, I'm not able to make it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me and considering me.
Is permission, you think, a word you've been living for a few years? Is that where, I know it's permission to be human, but permission's that's a loaded word.
It is.
And for someone who had a work addiction, permission is probably, that was everything.
Oh my gosh, yes, you hit the nail on the head. It's so true. And so I literally every single day have to tell myself to give myself permission to be human, because it's an experience where it's so easy to fall back into old patterns.
Right.
So like when my book came out, it was an experience that I went right back into work addiction. I had told myself I have to do everything now or else no one's going to read the book. I have to ramp up. I have to do all the things. And I was like,
promotion, right? You're talking about promotion of the book.
And it's like, I know how to do this. I'm good at this. And then 2 months later, I was like, oh my gosh, I just put myself back to where I was 5 years ago. And I disguised it as being, a good mother to my new book baby. Versus, why would you go against everything that you just built?
You just built it, and you did all that work to get to the place where you could be that kind of vessel for that message to come out.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you reverted. Well, what did you decide was the reason that you did it?
That I reverted, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't think I was good enough. I will tell you, after my launch, so the launch event was so successful. There was such great energy. And it was like, boom, as soon as it stopped, I went, here's everything I did wrong. Here's who I didn't acknowledge that I should have acknowledged. Here's this. Meanwhile, there was over 200 people. It was so well received. It's to the point where my PR team is using it as a model for how other people can launch their books. And it just wasn't good enough.
Well, okay, so when you come across people like you, which there are people out there like that. I mean, plenty, I'm going to say us. There are plenty of us out there like that judge ourselves unfairly. So when you come across people like that, knowing your own experience, how do you handle that? How do you connect with that person? How do you maybe help them see the fallacy in their ways?
Yeah, well, I usually share my own experience with it, right? And doing it in a way that's meeting them where they are. And like, not everybody can relate to launching a book, so that wouldn't be the story that I might choose in that moment. But for example, there's a woman I'm working with right now who English is her second language, and she just hates herself because she doesn't feel she can be able to be a real American, and she feels like she doesn't deserve a promotion, and she felt like she might as well just quit her job and go work at some kind of a fulfillment center where she doesn't have to speak. Meanwhile, she's a high level, very sophisticated person in her work. And we had a coaching session because she was going to lead a meeting, and she's like, I can't tell you how horrible this feels for me because I am so afraid of what people are going to think if my English isn't perfect.
Oh, wow.
And so I shared with her, I never used to wear anything that showed my arms because I was told that I had fat arms.
Oh God! Now we're getting into women body image issues, which are so rampant.
And so I told her I used to think I was so ugly, and she was just like, "Well, that's not true. Well, that's not true. Well, that's not true." I'm like, it's the same story of what you're saying.
You're telling yourself this story that's not true.
It's the same story. It's just a different version, right? And so you can see how ridiculous that is for me to say.
Right.
And so I want you to take the own medicine of what you just said to me for yourself. And so that is definitely, I know that the majority of folks I work with are working with me because they want somebody who can understand what the journey is like.
Well, and don't you feel like the first step to that is sharing those things, like sharing those things that those hangups you have. So like you and your arms, or this woman and her English language. I mean, you have to trust the person on the other side to even start. And you have to trust yourself too, right? Because like if you choose not to share that, you'll never have the growth that comes from it.
Exactly. And that's what I said. I was like, look, if you have this huge fear that your English isn't where it needs to be, how are you ever going to get better?
Right.
If no one can tell you where there are opportunities and where you're doing really well. And she's just so scary, so scary, so scary. And we only had 2 sessions together. And she did such a beautiful job leading this meeting. She just texted me a couple days ago and said, I'm about to lead a whole staff-wide meeting, and I am not nervous.
Good.
And it didn't take years, right? It just took somebody saying, look, what you're going through, what we all are going through, it just doesn't sound the same or look the same. Yeah. And you can do this. You just have to change the stories in your head about what's going on.
I want to talk to you about something that I just like your perspective on here, because something that I think about a lot is, does purpose and finding what you're supposed to do in this life, or in this stretch of years at this time in your life, does that have to be spiritual? And it's a question I think about a lot, because I think from my own personal lens, I mean, I grew up in a very spiritual, religious household. And so there were a lot of rules and regulations based on religion and spirituality. And so as an adult, I gave spirituality the stiff arm. Mm-hmm. And it's been, in the last year, probably, as I began to create this podcast, as I began to really try to figure out what it was that I wanted to bring more meaning into my life, things that I had previously given the stiff arm to had started to come back in and to, I don't want to say creep back in, because that would suggest that it was negative, but things started to feel more spiritual. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder, based on your perspective, I mean, you're working in a commercial situation. Yes, you're working one-to-one, but you are working with businesses. Mm-hmm. How often does spirituality end up becoming part of this like values, purpose kind of conversation that you have?
Every time.
Really? Does it? And are people comfortable with that?
Well, it's how it's being said, right?
Well, how do you bring it up?
So I'm not going to say like, hey, Lauren, let's talk about spirituality with your company, right? But it's the way the conversation goes. So it's interesting, because many people who I've gone into work in their companies, or they came to a workshop or a training or whatever, they have said, wow, I love how you weave spirituality into everything you do. And I'm like, you picked up on that?
Yeah.
Right? It's like I didn't even do that intentionally. Yeah. And like, I've had so many people reach out about the book. I was like, I love how much spirituality you wove into the book, but it wasn't a like section on spirituality, right? Yeah. It was a way of speaking that has the undertones of spirituality.
Okay. So like, what words are we talking about? What words have the undertones of spirituality that you feel like you're using?
Helping purpose.
So
like you just said, purpose.
A spiritual term?
Well-being.
You think well-being spiritual?
Yes, I absolutely do.
Wow.
Inner harmony. I think any time that you want to get to the ultimate, if you want to get to the ultimate level of success, spirituality must be involved. There's no other way. And I will tell you that as somebody who was not spiritual prior to going on my journey from being diagnosed with a work addiction. The first thing that my therapist said to me is, talk to me about your relationship with spirituality. And I just clumped it in with religion. There was no separation to me, and I did not have a positive experience with religion. And so I was like, don't talk to me about that nonsense. Like, that is not going to be a part of this experience together. And she was like totally respected all that. And it was funny, because years and years and years later, and I came back and I told her, I'm like, you would never believe who I am today, because spirituality is the greatest igniter for me in my purpose. And it's really, a lot of people think you're going to talk about something religious, but the way that I talk about it is like this greater purpose, this greater connection, the energy that exists everywhere we go, everything being connected to each other. Every time we make a choice, it impacts more than just us, and understanding that connection from a place of this bigger thing that's bigger than us. And I typically use the word universe versus like God or anything that feels maybe a little more on the religious side. But it has been really rewarding for people to recognize that, first of all, we're not in control. We think we are. Sometimes it feels like, well, I'm very in control right now, but anything could happen. This pandemic has been a huge eye-opener to that. We think that we have all this stuff that we can manage, but really there's a much bigger thing at play.
Yeah.
And when we can connect into that, right? And I'm going to start talking in my spiritual language.
Please
right?
do. I'm interested.
Manifesting, law of attraction, your vibration, the energy you're putting out there. I literally have never experienced the level of abundance that I'm experiencing during this time of things shutting down and, people losing their jobs and people not knowing what they're going to do. We have quadrupled.
Oh, wow.
And we're just getting started.
Yeah.
And I know that it is, sure, it's the actions that I take. Absolutely. I'm not downplaying that there's a lot of work that goes into it. But the bigger thing is trusting and surrendering to the knowing that I'm here to do big things and that the path is just going to keep opening up for me if I'm listening to the whispers. And so that, when I said well-being and you were like, well-being.
I just never heard anyone call it spiritual, ever.
Because the way that I talk about it is through listening to your body's whispers. Right? So
it starts with intuition, right?
Yes.
And most people don't consider intuition, well, some people probably consider intuition spiritual, but intuition is one of those words that I think has become so ubiquitous. Plenty of people talk about intuition, especially with women, to the point that I think plenty of people could say it and not feel that it's spiritual. Is that another gateway word, you think?
Yeah, I love that gateway word. Yes, it's that bridge, right?
Yeah,
it's the meeting people where they're comfortable. So some people aren't comfortable with intuition.
Really?
Yes, some people are really turned off by some of that language. Thankfully, there's so much more research being done, scientifically proving, right, that for people who are like, no, you have to show me like the data around
data
this.
About it. Absolutely.
There's so much data.
The gut feeling, there's all of that.
Exactly. And it's such a powerful way of, right now, the majority of us are overwhelmed, stressed, have anxiety, having sleep issues. And so if you can say, let's start with your well-being.
Let's start with your body.
Let's start with understanding you get migraines all the time. Well, what's going on when you get that migraine?
Yeah. Did you take a terrible phone call?
Exactly.
Are you working on a long-term project?
Yes. What are the conditions in which this is happening versus something's wrong with my body? Like, no, your body is sending you a message about a bigger opportunity that you can shift inside of yourself, either with the stories you're telling yourself or the choices you're making outside of your body. But the more that you're tuning into that as like the source, not, well, let me see what MaryBeth thinks or Lauren thinks. It's like, no, you got to tune into what you actually are feeling because no one else can tell you that but yourself. And that's when people start to feel their own power and understanding like, oh, I start to get really stiff in my neck when I'm doing this every Tuesday afternoon. Maybe I should stop doing that.
Yeah, start there.
But we don't often notice the patterns or give us space to notice our own patterns. And so we just keep recycling those patterns that are taking us in a downward spiral versus, oh, my body, which is the keeper of my soul, that's step 2, right? And like, you could say well-being in your body, and then when you say the keeper of your soul, that is the next level of opening into spirituality, the soul.
Yeah. Something I think about a lot too is, how did we evolve? As a race of humans. It wasn't because we had the internet. It wasn't because we had information. And I think modern times now, we are so knowledgeable. I believe that we've given the brain too much power. We evolved as mammals because we could feel our way through situations. That gut instinct It is how we evolved. And I feel like in the last, I don't know, probably 100 years, maybe more, we've started to give this part too much control because we say, if I don't see it or if I don't understand it, then it can't be right. Now, I absolutely say that science is incredible. The things that we've created are incredible. How far we've come, it is unbelievable. But in a lot of ways, most of us, I feel like, have forgotten this. Like, how do we tune in? Why don't we ask ourselves, what do I want? And I agree with you. I think that's the beginning point. Certainly, if you feel like there needs to be some kind of transformation, there has to be that question first.
Yeah.
And don't you feel like, because I look at you, MaryBeth, and I think I really do see a bridge, two canyons, this unspiritual side and this spiritual side. And because of your own personal experience, you're standing on this bridge and you're looking back on this other side of people that are like, that's not me. That's not, nope, don't talk purpose, don't talk spirituality, don't talk any of that with me. And it's almost like you're reaching back and you're saying, well, let's just get started. You just tell me, as long as you're comfortable, we'll start with your body.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Yeah, I love that visual. It's so powerful, that visual. It's true because you can't start with, let's come together and do a manifestation ceremony and raise our vibrations.
Raise our vibration.
you can with people who are there, right? But in this idea of the bridge, it's like, well, let's start with helping you sleep through the night.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be a different person because your body is more taken care of, the keeper of your soul. And then you can start to add a little bit, and then you get to the point of saying these things. And people, it's funny, somebody who I've known, we worked together professionally for many years, and then he just joined one of my 6-week cohort programs called the Journey to Alignment. And he said in the beginning, he had joined because he had come to one of our we do free monthly sessions with anybody who wants to come online. And James, my husband, he was leading a Tai Chi experience. And at the end, he had everybody just stand still and feel the energy that was moving through their hands. And he said, now repeat to yourself something like, I feel so much possibility and love running through me, more than I can ever imagine. And my friend said that he started crying and he never had that happen before. And he didn't know what was going on. It like freaked him out a little bit, but he knew it was something.
Yeah. And he could feel it.
He could feel it.
He didn't understand it.
He didn't understand. And he never had done Tai Chi or anything like that before. And so then when he enrolled in the program, I can't tell you how many times he had these extraordinary breakthrough moments. And he's like, when you talk about energy and alignment and how you need to have your vibration in alignment with what you want to attract. He's like, I thought there is no way.
No freaking way.
And in less than 6 weeks before the program was over, he had manifested the job of his dreams, $50,000 towards a program he'd been wanting to start his whole life. That was a reflection of his own journey that he wanted other people to have access to. And he was saying no to things that would have taken up the space if he had just kept going with the program of before. And he was like, I don't understand. He's like, I don't know what's happening because this is the first time in my life that I'm owning it.
Yeah.
And I'm acknowledging it as the work I've done inside.
Right.
And that's why it's showing up on the outside.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it is inner work, right? It is inside work that has to happen before there can be an outward expression of that.
Yes.
And I do feel like, I've talked with different people about, do you find purpose or does purpose find you? And I wonder, the very, very beginning of purpose, I feel like, is to recognize the brokenness or the missing pieces in your own story, starting with you, starting with self. And then it's maybe the resolution of some of that then allows the outward expression that we like to call purpose. But it does start inside. It is an inner experience first.
It is. 100%. You said it so well. We really cannot go out there to figure out what we're here to be and to do. And I think oftentimes We want other people to validate, like, this is the thing I'm supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about this? What do you think about this? What would you do in this situation?
Which I think is the worst thing you could possibly do. Don't ask anyone else their opinion, just do it.
And a lot of times you're asking people's opinions who are not living the life you would want to emulate.
And they don't have your vision.
Exactly.
It wasn't given to them, it was given to you.
Yes, and so a big part of the work is untraining you to think, I need other people to approve this for me.
Yeah.
Right? And I it's not the kind of thing of like, okay, let's reset life 100%, but rather like, what are the winks? What are the nudges? What are the whispers?
Right.
That you can start to take a baby step towards that direction, and then it starts to unfold. And sometimes it is a full reset, right? Of like, screw this. I'm totally changing my life.
Total correction.
And other times it's more of like, wow, I didn't even know I had that power inside of me by simply listening to myself first.
Right.
And then going in the direction of what my heart said instead of what somebody else thought would be a nice idea for me.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like, as you started to kind of dip your toe into spiritual waters, do you feel like things opened up to you in the way that you're describing this friend of yours or the person you know who decided to start looking into these things and then unlocking almost like gifts that were there in his own life? Have you found that for yourself?
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's almost like it's sitting there waiting for you, right?
It's every day. It's every day. I have a amazing spiritual girlfriend. She's a soul sister who is more established in her spiritual journey, and she was actually the first person to open the door for me. And she often gets visions and will call me and get so excited to like share a vision. She's like, oh, I got a vision today, and I'm like, yes, I can't wait to hear it. And she had this vision that she said, MaryBeth, I just saw you walking in this windy path, and everywhere you went there was this huge gift, and the message I'm here to give you is just pull the string. Just pull the string and open the gift, because the gift is always there for you, and everything's already worked out. You just have to keep pulling the string. And I take that with me every day, because even when you, which actually did happen to me yesterday, step in dog poop and like, and it's like, this is a horrible, it's like,
welcome to Nashville.
Not really, like, is it really that horrible? Is that really what I'm gonna use to wipe out this amazing, unexpectedly beautiful day in the winter that was a sunny, wonderful thing? And instead, like, what's the gift here, and keep looking for the gifts even in the moments that don't seem like there's gifts in them.
What an interesting way to look at life, though. I mean, I feel like, I'm totally guilty of this, and I'm sure all of us are at certain points in our lives, feeling like the things that are happening to us, taking that kind of victim mentality when it's misplaced. I mean, there are true victims, but there are times when we are not the victim and we want to play it, which is only holding us back. It's such an interesting way to look at life, to say all of your gifts are there.
They are.
Not gifts as in talents, but all of those presents are there for you. Those gifts are there for you.
Yeah.
Just pull a string, pull the bow.
Yeah.
Open it.
Yeah.
Open it.
I was fortunate to be at an event with Oprah earlier this week, and one of the things she said, which I believe is from Eckhart Tolle, but she said, the universe gives us exactly what we need for our consciousness to evolve. And I was like, yes, exactly. So even when it's like, why is this happening to me, right?
Yeah,
that victim to me.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we'll look around and see what the gift is. Like, look for it. Search for the gems. One of the things I say to my clients all the time is we need to pull the wisdom from the wound.
I love that.
Pull the wisdom out, and then that's what the gift is from this experience. And then you won't keep having that same kind of experience, because you're going to be evolved. Your consciousness has evolved because you took the time to really honor the wisdom instead of complain or vent or just try to pretend like it never happened, but rather like, let's get into it.
What's the
and
lesson
understand.
From this? Well, and the quicker that we can see these because terrible things happen all the time. It's life. And there has to be, a place where not only do we mourn whatever's being lost, but there has to be a time where we also say, all right, what's the lesson here? Because I believe the sooner we can accept the lesson in whatever it is, the sooner we can move past it.
Oh
and
my
go
gosh.
and go, just go forward. Because no one who wants to live in that. I don't want to live in that constant like Groundhog Day where it's the negativity every single day, or bad choice, or victim mindset over and over again. There has to be a point where you have to say, I love that, the wisdom in the wound.
Yeah.
That helps you just totally get past, don't you think, and evolve more.
Yes, and what a gift then for somebody who comes to you in the future and says, I'm going through this terrible thing. I can't believe this is happening to me. And you can hold space for them. You can be comforting. And you can say, you know, I haven't gone through that situation, but once I went through this situation and this is what I learned, it's a different kind of engaging with people. And it's saying not only like it's going to be okay, but also like here's my heroine's journey through that in my version of it. I'm not saying we're going through the same thing, right? We never want to say, oh, I know exactly how you feel because you don't.
It starts as when I remember when I had this situation.
I remember when I was so let down because that job didn't come through that I thought I wanted. And guess what? It led me to starting my own business.
And you know what's beautiful about that is I have found now that I'm almost 37, I've found that I can look back now and I have the wherewithal, I have the life experience to be able to say, it always turns out the way it's supposed to. So, and I feel like that evolved nature. That took me a long time to get to. It took me till this year, honestly. Some people get there so much earlier. I did not, because I did, feel like I could force things into being. I could force that promotion, or I could force that job, or I could force it. And the truth was, I was never in control, and I never will be. Truly, it's more a matter of, am I following my heart today? Am I listening today? Did I make the right choice today? Yeah. Okay, then the next day we go again. The next day,
Yeah.
And I say too, I didn't get that thing because it wasn't meant for me. And I've found myself saying that to people oftentimes. A newsroom is one of those places where there can be a lot of rampant disappointment. Mm-hmm. It's a competitive environment, we try to lift each other up the best we can, but sometimes it just doesn't work out the way you want it to. Mm-hmm. And so, sometimes I've said to people, I didn't get that because it wasn't meant for me.
Right.
And you didn't get that because it wasn't meant for you either.
Yeah.
But that's not a slight. That's because there's something else for you. And let's find that. Let's find that for you. What is that thing for you?
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful thing to be able to help people toward that. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're helping people find that.
Yeah. Gabby Bernstein has an awesome mantra that's, if not this, then something better.
Yeah.
And that has been amazing in the same way you were just sharing of, well, if it's not this, then it's something better.
Yeah. What is it? Let's find it.
Yeah.
Let's wait for it. Let's prepare our heart for it.
This isn't working out because something better is on the way.
Right. Yeah. It's a much quicker way to get where you need to go. What do you find is a hang up for a lot of people that you work with?
Thinking they don't have permission. Really, like believing that they can't actually, oh, that's nice for you.
Yeah.
Or for other people who have fill in the blank, right? Like a supportive partner, a bunch of money on the side, a job that they love or whatever. They have these like rationale for why it's not for them. Why you're just really lucky. And versus this is actually we all have this right. And yes, some people have it a lot harder than others for sure. And there's a level of recognizing your privilege, right? I recognize I have a ton of privilege as a white person, and wanting to also recognize that this is something we all have a right to, having this feeling of purpose and energy and aliveness, and how the world conspires in your favor once you start to step into that versus get pulled around by other people's desires and what other people have told you need to be or do.
Yeah. Do you feel like once you started making choices like that people were magnetized to you? They just were coming out of the woodwork?
Yeah. And I got to tell you, so we bought our tiny home at the end of October to start this retreat center, and we're going to start our migration out west to start living partially off the grid while we migrate our business as well, so that we don't need to be in front of our computers every day.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the day that I put that out there, I shared it on my social media. Since that day, we have been getting at least 1 to 3 inquiries a day. And people have said things like, and I'm so excited about your tiny home. Like, side note, so excited about that.
Yeah.
And what I'm realizing from hearing it over and over and over again is that people are so interested in working with people who are making big, scary choices and able to show that they do work out. Like,
I'm on the other side.
Yeah.
I made it across the bridge.
Right.
I know it's scary, but I made it.
Yes, exactly. And I was surprised. I thought, this is a big deal. Absolutely. Yeah. It's something we've dreamed about, and now it's happening. But I couldn't believe it was almost like a new well opened up. And now we're drinking from a fire hose with people who are interested in doing this work.
Right.
And I know for a fact that it's because we live the work, not because we're really great at regurgitating the framework of it, or just really kind people, or whatever it might be, but because we know what to do when we fall flat on our faces, how to pick ourselves back up, and then share the story of that. Yeah. And to say, we want my husband and my number one shared core value is unity with nature. And so living off the grid where we're headed in Idaho has been in something we've wanted ever since we started spending time out there together. And it was always one day. Yeah. And now that it's like, all right, day one.
One day is now, day one it becomes. Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to say is like when someone says, well, I really want to do such and such, I'll say, why aren't you?
Right.
Why aren't you doing that? I think there is part of it that there does have to be some doing.
Yes.
There has to be action in
it. Oh
my
gosh, yes. Aligned action.
Aligned action, right? And I also feel like if there's something you really, really want, that desire was put there.
Yes.
That's a breadcrumb.
Exactly.
Don't you think? Like a breadcrumb toward what needs to be done, what needs to be executed, what needs to be excavated or uncovered and found.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing too that's the whispers, right? That's what the body can tell you and can give you that information for what's the next step. And so even if it's like, so for example, in my own life, I am on a quest to become a cowgirl. That is literally a part of this retreat experience. That. Yes, I have a cowgirl mentor. I know how to herd cattle across the mountains now. Next time I go out, we're going to move them across the river together. So, it's literally been a dream of mine since I was a child. The property that we're building this space out was my great uncle's. And so since I was a little girl, I've been going out there, and he was a cowboy by profession. And so it's funny, I actually found an old notebook of mine from when I was a little girl recently, because my mom's been like cleaning out the attic kind of situation. And I pulled out these pictures that I had drawn as myself as a cowgirl. And I also pulled out this thing I wrote about loving New York City. I had never done either of those things, but I went to grad school in Manhattan. It was a huge changer in my life. Now I'm literally becoming a cowgirl like a dream I had as a little girl that went totally dormant for 20 years.
Wow.
And just came back in the last 5.
Okay, so one of our guests on this same season 1, Ian Morgan Cron, just said to me, he said one of his favorite things to say to people is, who were you before the world got their hands on you? Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing that story and I'm thinking that is that.
Yes.
You were drawing these things that you wanted years earlier.
Yes. And my mom would tell the story of when I was a little kid, I had these white cowgirl boots with fringe, and she said she couldn't get them off my feet. And I was living in Baltimore.
You should show the camera. I don't know, can our camera see these like amazing shoes? Yeah, look, there's your...
These are from high school.
These are your gold cowgirl
These are my
boots.
Gold cowgirl boots from high school. But it's those things that's like, well, you can't be a cowgirl. Like, that's not what you do, right? And
you can do whatever you want.
Not only can I watch me be one.
Hold my beer.
And no, I'm not going to change my profession, right? Like, that's not, like, I'm not here to totally change my career and be a professional cowgirl like Cheyenne, my cowgirl mentor, is. But I am here to really experience that, because that's when I feel the most alive when I'm out in nature and connecting through a horse and other people around me. And it gives me a sense of purpose that is not ignited in any other way. And so that's how I know we're meant to be there. We're meant to give more people these experiences and create spaces where they can explore what is my thing, what makes me light up when I'm trying these different things out, particularly when it comes to this idea of connecting with nature. I think that's one of the easiest way to start going into your spiritual journey is through nature.
Yeah, getting out, getting in the woods, feeling nature. I'm totally with you.
Yes, it's like all the wisdom that's inside of us is reflected out in nature. And so when we just look for it and listen to it, we can get so much further along on our own journey. Whenever I go out to our place in Idaho by myself, so I typically do 1 to 2 solo retreats out there, which is a really great, I would recommend to everybody, go on a solo retreat off the grid, like at least once in your life. It will change you because you're so used to expectations of others you didn't even realize, even if it's just your cell phone. Yeah. And every time I come back with like 50 ideas because of something I heard when the wind was blowing by, or something that came to me when I watched a ground squirrel cross, or something that was a smell in the air that just reminded me of an experience of the past. And it's just I need to block out all the other things. When I'm here, I love writing, but when I'm out there, I write poetry. And I don't write poetry when I'm at home. I just don't. But that's what nature does to me. It inspires me in that kind of way. And I know that's all of us. We all have that capacity. But not everyone's going to get turned on in the same level. Right. But I know that the more we can root in that wisdom, the more we can rise into who we're meant to be.
MaryBeth Hyland, thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, it's such a gift. Such a gift. Great to be with the soul sister.
Yeah, I know it.
So what'd you think? Tell me in the comments below, like it, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'm adding new videos all the time to help you reconnect with self and then prepare for purpose. And since you're here, I've gone ahead and linked my playlist, the episode Amplified. It gives shorter clips from each episode, still though very much power-packed with encouragement. It's all right here. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.